Welcome, Jumbo. So glad that you are joining us here on Black Power Media Reloaded. My name is Inez Barron, and I'm joined with my husband, the bold, the outspoken, the indomitable, the unbought, the unboss, the one, the only, the love of my life,
Charles Barron, and I call myself the humble servant. Always an honor and a pleasure to be on with my wife of 43 years. The stunningly beautiful, as you can see, and the intellectually brilliant Inez Barron.
Thank you so much. You are listening to Operation Power, a voice for Black radical politics and revolutionary change. We come to you each Thursday at 7 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time on Black Power Media. And we're so pleased to be a part of this platform, bringing exciting topics to you, interesting guests. And we've got a great guest that'll be joining us shortly, our brother Jalil Montakim, and he's going to have an exciting message. We are our own liberators, and he's going to talk about moving forward to the People's Senate. We'll be hearing from him shortly. But first, we do want to begin our program with a libation. We understand that we are at this point on our journey to liberation and freedom because of the work and the sacrifices and the commitment that has gone before by people oftentimes whose names we don't even know. Those who are in the leadership, yes, we know their names, but there are countless others who have made sacrifices, and we call them our ancestors. And we want to, at this time, offer our video as a libation, asking them to join us. And our technician, Kiru Gichuru, is going to do that at this time.
For African people, nothing important happens without a libation. And so for this very important presentation, we begin by the pouring of libation. We pour libation first to our first ancestor, to that hidden one who, though hidden, manifests in all things as all things, that God-goddess idea in the universe by any and all names. To our first ancestor, we pour libation, Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the first people on this planet, mothers and fathers of all mankind, flashpoint of the human family. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the ones who first gave birth to the idea of civilization, knew we would need a form of governance, and they nurtured that idea along the Nile until it reached its zenith in Kemet. There they built these gigantic monuments as evidence of that great civilization, and they carved instructions on the walls of temples and tombs for us, so we would never forget. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because over time they put together all the tenets of civilization, and they took those ideas and left the continent. They were the people of the first Exodus. They left Africa and went all over the world and peopled the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they did not sit on their laurels. They continued to improve, continued to evolve, and at each point of evolution, they again would leave the continent and settle and resettle the planet. They met themselves coming and going. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time, they found themselves the object of a forced exodus when they were kidnapped, shackled, cargoed, shipped out of Africa and enslaved in diasporas around the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to the ancestors left at home, the very young, the aged, the infirm, left to reinvent themselves, depleted of us, human resources. But they were enjoined by us in the diasporas, both objects of a global myopia that ruptured the soul of a people as it ravaged a continent. To those ancestors, we pour libation, Ashe. Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time they began to remember who and what they were. Because no matter where they had been dropped off, they still retained bits and pieces of who and what they were. They retained that African core that described them. They began to remember bits and pieces of a song. They began to remember lines from a rhythm. They began to remember dances that they did in ancient times. They began to remember those ancient drum beats that they now beat out on bare skin. And so to those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to them, because they then began to teach each other. They began to resurrect and reconstruct that history and that culture. They became the new Africans wherever they were. They became the new teachers, preachers, archaeologists, the new singers, dancers, the new drummers, the new Jaliyah. They reconstructed that history and our culture and became new Africans everywhere. So to those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation to those ancestors, because they are the ones who pass that information on to us. And so we pour libation to those of you who will watch this presentation, those of you who are the recipients of that pieced together history, of that reconstructed culture. To you, we pour libation. Ashe.
Asheo.
Asheo.
Well, we feel it's so important to recognize our ancestors. And as we do that each week, we ask you to also think of your ancestors who have been involved in helping this journey to get to the point where we are. Well, again, this is Operation Power, the name of our program, which is also the name of the organization that helped to get us into the seats of legislation that we occupy. And we want to now share another video with you, which gives you a brief background of Operation Power and some of the accomplishments that we've made here in the East New York section of Brooklyn.
Operation Power stands for people organizing and working for empowerment and respect.
Operation Power is a grassroots social justice organization founded by local community stakeholders, which includes activists, organizers, and leaders who understand that the system as it is currently structured is destroying us and our communities.
The system, the capitalist system, one that promotes human greed over human need, one that promotes profit over people, needs to be dismantled. These local community organizers recognize capitalism needs to be destroyed and replaced with socialism.
Operation Power was founded in 1997 with the understanding that uprooting capitalism needs to begin locally. Operation Power understood that our communities are the perfect vehicle to dismantle this parasitic capitalist system brick by brick, and the economic, political, and cultural institutions and other systems in place in our local community infrastructure. Whether it's the local school board, community board, city council, state assembly, all represents mechanisms to control the destiny of our people.
Thank you so much. Just a brief snippet about Operation Power. And we do want to highlight 3 books that we want to recommend that you get from Barnes & Noble's online. Of course, there are extensive books in our libraries, but we want to highlight these 3. The first one is called Speaking Truth to Power, and it is a compilation of articles and essays, features that have been given by Charles over the last 20, 25, 30 years of his being involved. The second one is called It's Not You, It's Capitalism, Why It's Time to Break Up and How to Move On. And the author is Malika Jabali, Esquire, and it talks about capitalism and it's very enlightening. The next book is in fact a novel. It is written by Kevin Barron and the title is Black Rising. It's a page turner. I promise you, you won't put it down until you finish. The second is a part of the trilogy, and it's called Black Rising Home and Abroad. And it continues the theme and characters introduced in the first book in the trilogy. And the last book in the trilogy is called The Threat. So we encourage you to go online to Barnes & Noble's, where you can purchase these 3 books, and you won't be disappointed. We're so pleased that you're joining us. Our topic, again, is we're talking about Onward to the People's Senate. We are our own liberators. And we have a special guest with us, our brother Jalil Montaquim, and we're going to invite him to come forward now on the screen. Brother Jalil, welcome. We're so pleased to have you here. And for those of you who are not as familiar as we are with our brother, he is a political activist. He is a Black Panther Party veteran. He is a veteran of the Black Liberation Army and has been involved in movements and speaking out for our people since he was a teenager. He served as an outspoken liberator and speaker, and as such was a target of the COINTEL program of J. Edgar Hoover, which was found to be illegal. The policies that they implemented and targeted the leaders and the organizations that they deemed were a threat to the American policies were targeted, they were infiltrated, there were lies that were perpetrated, and the purpose was to destroy and disrupt our organizations, and they used illegal tactics in what they wanted to do to have that happen. And one of those targets was, of course, the Black Panther Party. Others, all of our leaders of that time were targeted, but the Black Panther Party was targeted as the most threatening of all of those organizations at the time. And as a part of that threat, they were targeted, they were arrested, they were brought up as on charges, and even the judge at the sentencing referred to them as political prisoners of war. So we have our brother Jalil, who is with us now. We're so pleased that after, almost 5 decades, that he has been released. And just to talk about his release a little, during COVID, the judges were had the ability to release those persons that they felt were able to function in society and make contributions to society. So the judge ordered that he be released, and the Attorney General of New York, named Letitia James, challenged that judge's order, and she was successful with her challenge, and he had to remain incarcerated for another period of time, for a couple of months, until he was in fact released on parole. So everybody who's Black in high places is not acting in our best interest, but he's here, he's out, he's working, he has a spirit that has not been damaged or put down at all. Charles?
Yeah, I got to say this. This is my man. This is my leader. This is my comrade in struggle. And the times that I went to visit him when he was incarcerated, not once did he say, "What are you going to do to get me out?" He always talked about, what are we going to do to liberate ourselves as a people? And I was impressed by that. So did most of the political prisoners. Matula Shakur, when I visited him, he gave me a mission to do, and it wasn't to get him out, it was to continue to fight for our liberation. So Jalil, we're just honored to have you on, and we want to talk about the big event that's coming up in Atlanta. And you have a great book out. I've gone through it, and it has good lessons for us to learn on how we become our own liberators. Brother Jalil.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace. Pause. Abergani, Jumbo, Hawaii, Haping, Harin, Afia, Guten Tag, Shalom, Irene, Hafa Adea, Alafia, whatever your native language, I wish you peace and solidarity. Thank you both Charles and Inez for giving this opportunity to speak on these vital issues that we are confronting today. But I'd like to make, before I get started on these issues or answer any questions that you may have of me, let me make some clarifications about what you stated, Sister Inez, in regard to Letitia James. The situation was this: COVID had been proliferating and spreading throughout the prison system. They didn't tell us what was going on. And then when we found out what was going on, I had my attorneys put in a petition to the Supreme Court up in upstate New York, arguing that because of my elder age, I was susceptible to getting COVID. And because they didn't have any protocols established to address this issue, that it would be advantageous for them to grant me temporary release until they develop the protocols to deal with COVID, and then I would return. The court granted that habeas corpus petition, granted my temporary release, and then Letitia James filed her appeal, right, to prevent that habeas corpus from being persecuted or being implemented. And in the interim, I caught COVID. I got COVID, right? And I went to Albany Medical Center. I was held at Albany Medical Center for 5 days under oxygen. They gave me every kind of medication you can believe. They said the dictator received medication for his. He didn't get half the medication that I got. My butt felt like a pin cushion when they got finished with that. And I have great respect for Albany Medical Center because essentially they saved my life. The life that Letitia James tried to snuff out by her appeal. Okay, and by the grace of God, grace of Allah, right? The appellate court, right, decided because I have already got COVID, right, that the petition before them was then considered to be moot, right? Because it was sent there for me to prevent me getting COVID, right? And so now that I had it, the appellate court has said that it's moot, and then I had to go back to the parole board. Several months later, I went to the parole board for the 14th time to the parole board, and they granted my release from parole. And I think primarily they did it because because a state judge had originally granted temporary release. The first time in the history of New York law that they allowed a person to get temporary release as a result of a disease inside the prison system. Okay, so that was the situation with that. And any time that I see Letitia James at different events that I might fall into, she definitely turned away from me. She don't want to hear anything I have to say because she knows that I'm gonna call her a murderer or attempted murderer, right, for her efforts to prevent me from being released from prison, and the fact that I did in fact got COVID. It was so bad that they had to take me out to the hospital, had me on oxygen for 5 days, and again I give thanks to Albany Medical Center for essentially saving my life, right, and allowing me to come back out here and get back to work. So let's talk about this work. Let's talk about this work. All right, if you have any specific questions that you want to ask, or do you want me just talk?
Well, yeah, you can talk, but also the specific questions. I want to talk to us about the founding of the People's Senate and the work you're doing with the Mandela Project and why that's critically important and what is the scope of that so that people can get a great understanding of what's going to be happening in Atlanta.
Okay, thank you for that question. I have to set a foundation for this, right? So people have an understanding that the breadth of the work that we have been engaged in for several years now. In 2018, I was locked into Southport Correctional Facility in solitary confinement. Attica had sent me to Southport by virtue of teaching a class in Attica, approved class in Attica, an African study class that I was teaching. And I started from 1861, went all the way to 1966. And when I got to 1966, they stopped the program because I had to talk about the Black Panther Party. And they didn't want us to talk about the Black Panther Party. Okay, so they stopped the program, put me in isolation for 6 months, saying that I was trying to get these guys to become African, to become militants, to become revolutionaries. And yes, they're absolutely correct. That's exactly what I was trying to do. I was trying to get these JDs, gangster disciples, the Bloods, the Crips, the Nietas, and the various gangs become more progressive in their thinking and their understanding of why they're in prison. Okay, so they sent me to Southport, and in Southport, I wrote to my comrade Jihad Abdul-Mumit and said, listen, we need to bring the international jurists back to the United States. We had brought them into the United States back in 1981, but I had the first petition to the United Nations. I established the prisoners petition, national prison petition to the United Nations that was actually heard. The first time a petition sent by prisoners or by incarcerated people, workers, I was heard by the United Nations. I said, we need to bring them back, the international jurists. And he said, yes, Jalil, we'll bring them back. and he brought the attention to our dear beloved comrade Sekou Odinga and also Matt Myers. They agreed, and they said, well, we're going to do so, but we're going to bring them back under the auspices of a tribunal, international tribunal on the issues of genocide. So we brought 5 charges, the 5 charges of mass incarceration, health inequities, environmental racism, state-sanctioned violence, and existing of political prisoners. And after 3 days of testimony, 30 witnesses testified, box of documents that the internet, an esteemed body of international jurors, people who are linked to the human rights organization international, and also to the United Nations, they determined on October 25th, 2021, that the United States is in fact guilty of the charge of genocide against Black, brown, and indigenous people. Please understand what I just said. The United States will be found guilty by an esteemed body of international jurors of genocide against Black, brown, and indigenous people. If people have not read the 1948 Convention on Genocide, I won't go through it because we don't have time to go through the whole thing. But if they have not, please read it. And if you don't want to read the 1948 Convention on Genocide, then go to 18 U.S.C. 1091, 18 U.S.C. 1091, and read it from there. That's the U.S. Treaty to the 1948 International Convention on the Prevention of Genocide. So the United States is a treaty partner to the International Convention. However, we know that the United States is not going to charge itself with violation of its own laws, particularly the laws of genocide. All right, and so as a result of that decision by the international jurors on October 23rd, 2021, we said we have to remove ourselves from harm. We have to create the conditions to create alternative systems of governing, because this government has not worked for us, will not work for us, and therefore we have to create new means for which we can survive this harm that we have suffered for over 400 and something years. Okay, this traumatic harm that we have suffered for over 400 and something years. And so our goal and objective is to build alternative systems of governing. So on July 4th, 2026, we'll be convening in Atlanta, Georgia, at the East End Park in Atlanta, Georgia, on July 4th, and we'll be celebrating our 250 years of resisting genocides, resisting white supremacy, resisting colonialism, imperialism, and capitalism, exploitation of our people. That's our goal and objective, right? And in so doing, by bringing this convergence of progressives across the country for this purpose, on July 5th, we'll be having workshops on those 5 issues: mass incarceration, health inequities, environmental racism, state-sanctioned violence and killing of our people, and existing of political prisoners. And we want to be able to have people from all across the country on these 5 points to bring these issues back to their community, right? So that we can build a national network of resources, national network of people working in these particular areas, moving towards what we call the People's Senate. Why we got to build a People's Senate? Because this Senate is not working for us. This Senate is not doing the things that we know needs to be done in our community. And we know that this system is based upon corporation, that the system is in fact a corporation. If anyone wants to go to 28 U.S.C. 3002 15A, right? As you say, 28 U.S.C. A 3002 15A, it will read specifically, the United States is a federal corporation, right? And then when we look at, when you look at the Supreme Court decision, the Citizens United, they stated that corporations are people.
That's right.
So when the United States says for the people and by the people, they're not talking about flesh and blood human beings. They're talking about corporations. That is their people. Corporations are supporting of corporations. All right. And so what we are in fact no more than wage laborers, slaves are for the corporate interests, right? And they exploit us, they exploit our labor, they exploit everything that we produce and create. They take from and exploit it for their own profits. And it's important for us to understand that the system, in fact, is a corporation, because we have our children pledging allegiance to the corporation.
That's right.
Right. Unbeknownst of the fact that that it's not a true government, not a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And so what we're trying to do, we're going to build what we call the People's Senate, for the people, by the people, right? And we're going to create the means for which we can create alternative systems of governing, recognizing this system of government, this fascist entity that they now call the United States of America, right, is a system that we cannot no longer be beholden to. We cannot no longer have allegiance to because they have no allegiance to us, particularly black, brown, indigenous people in this country. But I want to make this other point explicitly clear too. It's important for us to understand as this is a corporation, right, and its function as that we have to be able to figure out ways how we can establish our own nation, what it means for particularly new African people to build and establish our own nation, to create sovereignty. And why did I say we create sovereignty, right? Because this is a slave nation.
That's right.
Make the point clear, especially clear. This has always been a slave nation. It has never not been a slave nation. And why you say that? You know why you're like, this is a slave nation? Yeah, this is a slave nation, right? And why I say that? Go read the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution. On the same date, on the same time, on the same ink, on the same paper, these same white men, when they ended chattel slavery, they started penal slavery.
That's right.
Right? Did they not? 13th Amendment. Not only did they start penal slavery, they codified it in the law. It's in the Constitution. Slavery is in the Constitution. So when at one point, at any point, that slavery was abolished in this country?
Mm-hmm.
Never was. It transitioned from chattel slavery to penal slavery.
That's right.
So we live in a slave nation. Let's understand that. Okay? So for our future, right, we have to remove ourselves from harm. We have to remove ourselves from a system that's based upon slavery. And slavery has never been abolished.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay. So let's understand that, right? From chattel slavery to penal slavery. Same time, same date, same ink, same paper, same white men. Right? The only thing they did was transfer it from that. They're saying that you as an individual cannot hold people as property. Right? You can't hold people as slaves. Right? But the state can.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
The corporate government can. Right? And therefore, we have mass incarceration. And who was in mass incarceration? Black, brown, indigenous people.
That's right.
It's a continuation of the slave system. All right? So for us, that's the reason why one of the issues of our tribunal was mass incarceration. That the International Jewish Fund in the United States was part and parcel of genocide.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been genocide. If we look at our population, talking about black people population in this country, African people of African descent in this country, our population growth is almost stagnant compared to other ethnic groups in this country. There's no growth in our population. Right? I live up here in Rochester, New York. We have an infant mortality rate that's 5 times higher than the national average. I live in a city that's 3 times the worst city, 3rd worst city of poverty in New York State, and the 5th worst city of poverty in the country. We have a population that is 70% rentals. Right? 70% of the population are renters. Right? But no form of home ownership, no pathway of home ownership, and no pathway of generational wealth. And you can look at the territory demographics of those who are 70% renters, they're in perpetual poverty. There's no way to get out of that.
That's right.
Okay. And so this is an argument. This is our fight, right? We have to create our own sovereign nation. Right, and I'll make that point explicitly clear. And a lot of people don't understand there are sovereign nations within this corporate entity that they call the United States. All right, particularly the indigenous brothers and sisters. Right? They're sovereigns. Okay, and we had an opportunity to become sovereign at one point in time. All right, after the Emancipation Proclamation, with Field Order Number 15. That allowed from St. John South to the Florida Basin to be inhabited by these emancipated Africans, right? And began to establish what we call freemen bureaus, right? Which was governing capacity for which they began to govern themselves, right? From South Carolina to the Florida Basin, all that stretch of territory, right? Within the habitation of being inhabited by these emancipated slaves. And they began to establish their own governing capacity to govern themselves. And then in 1877, when they had the Hayes-Tilden Compromise, right, where Rutherford B. Hayes won the collegiate vote, and Samuel Tilden won the popular vote, and Samuel Tilden was what? A Confederate.
That's right.
And they had a compromise and said, well, Hayes, you can take the presidency, but you got to remove the Yankee troops from the territory that was supporting and safeguarding these emancipated Africans, 1877. And what happened after that? After they removed those troops? 100 years of lynching, pure terror and barbarity. Why? Because the Confederates became the Ku Klux Klan.
That's right.
Right? And that's the first migration out of the South, right? Into the North, into the West, into the East, right? African people trying to get away from this barbarity, from this savagery. And then who do we have in government today? The Confederates.
That's right. That's right.
The Confederates. Right. What do they believe in? They believe in genocide. What do they believe in? They believe in mass murder. What do they believe in? They believe in slavery.
That's right.
Well, keep in mind now, remember, this is a slave nation. They had never not been a slave nation. All right? And we've always been a target. Look, anywhere in the world where you find black people and people of African descent, they're downtrodden. Anywhere in the world. Right? New Zealand, Australia, Germany, France, England, Brazil, South Africa, the Caribbean. Black people are downtrodden. So we live in a world based upon this aberrant idea of white supremacy. See? And that's who's controlling the planet, who's actually controlling this government today, is the white supremacists. All right. And so that is our primary goal and objective for the July 4th celebration, July 4th and 5th celebration, to come to an understanding of the progressive forces across this country, to come together, we call it a national convergence, right? So we can get on the same page, right? Right, and be in the same book. We may not be on the same paragraph, but there are different trends and tendencies in our movement, right? But we got to be on the same page, right? Yes. And that page is what? That book is what? We are our own liberators. Because if we don't do it, ain't nobody else will.
That's right.
Right? So that's the model. That's the golden objective. That's what's happening on July 4th and July 5th. July 4th will be the festivities and the understanding that we're all coming together, celebrating our 250 years of resisting this system of white supremacy, capitalist imperialism, colonialism, and fascism, right? And on the 5th, we're going to get down. We're going to pull up our sleeves, pull up put on our boots, right? Put on our combat boots, right? Pull up our sleeves and get to work, right? We're going to find out where our convergence, where we meet, where we find unity and solidarity with one another, and we're going to return back to our homes, our cities, our states, right? With this idea that we have to organize as great solidarity and unity as we possibly can. We have to build national networks. We have to build what we call the People's Center.
Powerful, powerful. You know, I wanted to discuss more with the importance of those of us Africans in the belly of the beast. There's over 50 million African people right here in America. The importance of us rising up as revolution is occurring, oppressed masses are rising up all over the world. And it seems as though the whole world is saying, hey, Africans in America, if you rise up and strike a decisive blow in the belly of the beast, that will be catalytic in the liberation of all humanity. And so I think the Senate idea, speak more on that, because it's going to happen in regions all across the country, and it's going to unite all of us doing different kinds of work to come together on one single thought, and that is being our own liberators.
Okay. I think it's important for people to understand that we live in an empire, right?
Yes.
We live in an imperialist empire. And history informs us that empires are not destroyed by external forces, right? They may be weakened by external forces, but history informs us empires are dismantled when the people inside the empire says no more.
That's right.
We're done. We're
right.
finished, right? We ain't about this anymore, okay? And that's what we're coming to. We're coming to the point where we're saying, we're done. We're finished. We're not about this anymore. And the world is waiting on us. Why are they waiting on us? Because we're in the belly of the beast.
That's right.
Right? And again, I already stated, with history informs us that in terms of empires, they're dismantled by the people inside the empire. So yes, the world is waiting on us. Those who have been oppressed by imperialism, those who have been oppressed by colonialism, those who have been subjected to white supremacy, they're waiting for those of us who have had the most brutal treatment as a result of these systems. Okay, knowing that when we rise up, the world will rise up with us.
That's it.
Okay, and that's important to understand that. Right, the world is waiting on us. Okay, so that's our goal and objective of building the People's Senate. Part of the process, again, is the issues of knowing who our friends are and who are our enemies. Okay, knowing who are part of the struggle for liberation, independence, right, and those who are for oppression and repression. Right, we are anti-fascists. We are anti-white supremacists. We are anti-imperialists. We are anti-patriarchy. We are anti-colonialism and anti-fascists. And if you're that, then you're supposed to be in Atlanta. If you brought them principles, them concepts, and them ideas, then you're supposed to be in Atlanta on July 4th. Okay, but that's where we're converging. All right, and so it's important for us to understand that our goal and objectives, as you stated, Charles, brother Charles, that we have broken the country down into 6 regions.
Yes.
Right, and 1 external region into the Caribbean and that area out there, right, outside of the territory, right. 6 regions, and we're organizing these 6 regions where we're trying to build what we call people's assemblies. Right now, these assemblies, they will elect individuals who will be their representatives in those regions, who will be collectively considered the People's Senate, right? Mm-hmm. And then we began to establish a national platform, all right, for which we all can organize, right, in our territories, in our regions, okay, and begin a counter voice to what is happening, a counter movement to what is happening, a progressive revolutionary movement for real institutional and substantial change in this country. To be able to collect our resources, the resources available to us that we can utilize. Remember now, we are fighting against billionaires. We are fighting against billionaires and trillionaires.
That's right.
And we've been fighting these billionaires and trillionaires with selling T-shirts, you know, selling mugs, cups, right? Yeah, selling books. You know what I mean? Yeah. Hey, that's not enough. That's not enough. Right. We got to begin the process of how we're going to establish our own institutions of wealth building.
That's right.
And have those institutions aligned with our forces on the outside of the territory, outside of the country. But also keep this in mind as well in terms of building solidarity amongst our forces. People got to understand that we, from African people in this country, those particularly who identify themselves as New Africans, that our goal and objectives is nationhood. Mm-hmm. Okay, Malcolm X, Al-Hassan Shabazz told us that revolutionary goals and objectives is based upon land.
Land. That's right.
If you're not fighting for land, then what you're fighting for. He also told us that freedom, that the cost of freedom is what? Death.
Yeah.
Right. And if you ain't willing to give up your life for this work, if you're not willing to give up your liberty for this work, then go someplace and play tiddlywinks or whatever you're going to do, because you're in the way. All right. So we want serious people about serious work. Right. Because and let me make I always get these points I want to make. Let me make another point. Right. When I was in the Black Panther Party at the age of 16. Right, I believe we're going to have revolution in our lifetime. That we're going to succeed and build the revolution in our lifetime. Right, as I matured, I come to understand that it's generational. Okay, so now I'm no longer fighting for myself. Right, I'm fighting for my babies. I'm fighting for my grandchildren.
That's right.
Right, as our ancestors had fought for us, put us in the position that we are today. Okay, so we are standing on the shoulders, and our children are going to stand on our shoulders. Mm-hmm. Right, but in order for our children to stand on our shoulders, we got to lay a foundation. Excuse me. We got to lay a foundation for them, and that foundation at this point in time, where we are in a historical development, is building what we call the People's Senate. Right, regional organizing, people's assemblies, organizing to build representatives, organizing so we have a national determination, a national platform for which we can, at minimum, organized either in regards to mass incarceration, environmental racism, health inequities, state-sanctioned violence against our people, and national support of our political prisoners. Now, why is that point important? Right? Because political prisoners are the lifeblood of our struggle.
Yes.
They are the ones who is willing to sacrifice their life and liberty for our people. Right? We cannot leave them behind.
That's right.
That would be betrayal of our beliefs, betrayal of our struggle, right? So supporting political prisoners is essentially supporting yourself, right? supporting yourself. Why? Because at any given time, you might be one.
That's right.
All right? They
That's
snatch people off the street and disappearing people right now. All right? So if you get caught up in that maelstrom of fascism, who gonna come get you? Who gonna come support you? Well, I say Kundinga and our comments liberated Asala Shakur. Right? Who gonna come get us? Who gonna fight for us? If you're not willing to fight for our people today, who's right behind enemy lines, who are actually in the slave system, right? So yes, we have to become abolitionists. A movement has to become an abolitionist movement. We have to become an emancipatory movement. We have to become a movement of liberators, right? That's the ideal. That's the goal. And when we understand that, when we internalize that, then we know supporting our political prisoners is essential to our cause, right? We'll know that stop the mass murders of our people is essential to our cause. We have to know that racial health disparities is important to our cause. Why white people live longer than black people in this country? Because we don't have the same resources that have been given to us as is given to the white population. Okay, right? Environmental racism. We have the highest form of asthma, kidney disease, heart disease, you name disease, we got it.
That's right.
Okay? And much of it is due to trauma that we have confronted, right? And a lot of it is due to environmental racism, pollution, and pollution in our communities, right? You go looking at communities, looking at our apartments, we have what? Lead poisoning?
That's right.
We have water pollution happening in Detroit, right?
Yeah.
We see what happened with Katrina some 30, 20 years ago, right? That's environmental. They send in these databases in communities that are going to be impacted by this construction of these entities. All right. So we got to stop that, man. Right? We got to stop that to save our babies. At minimum, let's save the children. Right? We can't save ourselves. We save the children. Set the foundation for them. Right? So that's what we're doing. We're building the People's Senate. We recognize that we are suffering the conditions of genocides. Right? And let me make another point. All right, another point is this here. Who are we? We have an identity issue, identity crisis as African people in this country. Okay? And it's important for us to understand that history. Because they're going to use it against us, divide and conquer. Right? They're going to have those that are going to call themselves Negroes. Right? Call themselves Black. Call themselves African Americans. And then there's going to be those of us who self-identify ourselves as New Africans. Okay? But what does that mean? What that transition means for us, right? Because listen, part of our trauma is our lack of identity. That's a major part of our trauma. Because we don't know who we are as a people, as a nation of people, right? I was at an event earlier today. I gave a presentation earlier today here in Rochester, right? And I told people, listen, I named my car, right? My car is named Harriet. Right? I named Harriet because I know Harriet will get me to where I got to go. Right? He'll get me from one place to the next place where I got to go. Harriet will get me there. Okay? I named my car. Right? We named our pets. We named our property. They named us.
There you go.
Right? And we accepted the name given to us by those who oppressed us. That's trauma. That's a loss of identity. Right? Because when we were brought to this country, we came as Igbos, we came as the Fon, we came as Hausa, we came as Yorubas, we came as Mandicos, we came as Mandikas, we came as various tribes that came off the west coast of Africa, and we miscegenated. They put us all these forces together, the genetic forces together. Not only did we miscegenated with these different tribes and nations over Africa, we miscegenated with the Dutch, with the Portuguese, with the English, with the Spanish. Not only that, but we messengeting with who? The Cherokee, the Seminoles, the Creek. My great grandmother's Muskogee Creek out of Alabama, right? They created a new genetic bloodline, right? And our understanding of that, we self-identify ourselves as New Africans. We accepting that history out of the Atlantic slave trade, but we put it in the context of understanding who we have become. Right? Liberatory. Understand who we have become. Not being named by our oppressor, but self-identifying ourselves and understanding that history and what it has made. It made us a unique people on this planet. Unique. There's no other people on this planet have this genetic makeup.
Right.
None. And we have to honor that and understand the depth of. That's why they fear us.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get this one explicitly clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an inherent fear of us because of our dominant genetic genes.
Right. You know who
we
always
are the dominant gene, they're a recessive gene. And I don't want to go too far on from that on the medical and genetic aspect of it, right? People can study it and understand it, but that is important for us to know that in terms of our identity of who we are on this planet.
But you're hitting on something there. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she always made a big point on that. I want to ask you something.
Yes,
we in the belly of the beast.
Yes.
We have to deal with the power of the state, the power of the colonial capitalist system, the power of their army, the power of their intelligence system, the power of Wall Street, and the control over the economics in our communities. So how do we address the question of power as we build the Senate, as we build the case for our liberation? And how do we, because it's always a challenge between survival and liberation. You know, a lot of our people are, 95% of our people are into survival. They're just trying to survive. And we got to get them to liberation in the belly of the beast. So how do you propose we deal with state power in the meantime?
Okay. Well, it's in the meantime and in between time. It's basically all the time. Okay. All the time. Yeah, we have to deal with the state. Let me just make a point in regards to who is now the state.
Yeah.
Okay. The state now is those who believe in the systems of slavery. The state now is in control of the people who believe in genocides. The state now is in control of the people who believe in mass murder, right? Mm-hmm. They now control the military. Mm-hmm. They control NSA. They control the CIA. They control the FBI. They are training police across this country, mm-hmm. right? Some say that they have the IDF infiltrating into the military and also mm-hmm. the police forces across this country, right? We're in dire straits in understanding what is going on here, right? They control, right? And then when I'm saying control, I'm talking about the Confederates, right? They said the South will rise again, but they have risen, right? All right, they now can have control. All right, so in regards to our understanding of our relationship to the system of Confederacy, the MAGA Confederates, right? Mm-hmm. We have to create alternative systems of governing. Okay. If we're going to use electoral politics, I know that's what the two of you have been engaged in, and your Operation Power is in certain instances is about, right? Then we have to elect those individuals who subscribe to our ideology and our principles and our ideals, right? And then use that platform as a means to educate and build a basis in our community. All right. What Malcolm X told us, by any means necessary.
That's right.
Okay. I say by all means necessary. Okay. If anything's gonna be laboratory, gonna get us out from the yoke of these creatures, right? These Neanderthals, right? Then we're gonna use those resources, right? We're gonna use those means. Okay. Right. So yes, we're gonna use electoral politics at the point in time where it's needed and necessary, right? We can use mass organizing, right? Like the civil rights movement. The teams is necessary. We're going to use other extra legal techniques, right, to defend ourselves. We have an inalienable right to defend ourselves. Okay, we ain't got to ask our oppressors how do we defend ourselves. We have to make a decision to ourselves how are we going to defend ourselves. We cannot allow our oppressors to tell us how we're supposed to resist. That's a determining factor for us to make. All right. And so it is important for us to know that we're going to use whatever tools that's available in our toolbox. And what's not available in the toolbox, we're going to go find it.
There you go.
And where we're going to find it, you're going to find it within the breasts and hopes of the people.
That's right. Here's something.
Why? The people are the motive force in creating history.
That's right. Here's something that's right in our face. Neo-colonialism.
Yeah.
the new face of colonizing us is black.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're in a country that has 340 million people. 50 million are us. And of that 50 million, the people they give power to are neo-colonial black puppets. How do we deal with that?
Okay, all right. Well, first of all, we got to understand what neocolonialism is and where it comes from, right? And how we have been indoctrinated into the idea that we are quote unquote Americans. That's the first problem that we have to address, right? Because if we're in fact Americans, then they're not supposed to treat us the way they do. Okay. So as our dear beloved comrade and brother Imam Jamil Al-Amin, Rap Brown once stated, either you're a citizen or you're a slave. Okay. All right. There's no in between in regards to that. All right. There's no such thing as a second class citizen. All right. So for those who are neo-colonialists in their thinking, let's keep this in mind. Right. Part of it is a failure of our movement. And what I mean by that, what do you mean by that as part of the failure of movement, Jalil? I mean this, the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement was a movement that tried to move us into integrating into the system, to try to become assimilated into the system, right? And as a result of those issues, those practices, of those ideological strategy, right? It cost us. It costs us our capacity to develop our own means for understanding who we are as a people, to move towards our own nationhood, right? As we did in 1877, before the Hayes-Tilden Compromise, right? Again, we have sovereign nations in this country. And so for us, it's important that we decolonize our thinking, decolonize our indoctrination, remove ourselves from that indoctrination of that we are quote unquote African Americans, right, or Afro Americans, right? Because we know that America has never been in support of Africa, never been in support of Africa. They always sought to exploit Africa. So us identifying ourselves as African Americans, we got to make a decision of what side of us are we going to actually support. Because if you support the American side of that identity, then that means you are opposing the African side of the identity, right? That's schizophrenia. So one of the things we have to go back to in terms of dealing with this neo-colonialism is that we have to divorce ourselves from this idea of integrating into a system of white supremacy or assimilating into an idea of white supremacy, right? They don't want us, right? Only way they want us is to exploit us in our labor, okay, to profit off us. So it is imperative that we tell our quote-unquote leaders, right, who are neo-colonialists, whom the corporate entity defines as to be our leaders, who they choose to pick to be our leaders, right? We have to tell them, if you're not working for our national liberation and independence, there's no way in hell that you can be able to speak in my behalf, all right? And that's part of what I say in my book, We Are Our Own Liberators, what I call three-phase theory for national independence. The first phase is class struggle for national unity, right? We have to engage these neo-colonialists. We have to engage this petty bourgeoisie. We have to tell them that you're on the wrong side of history, right? We have to inform them how they've been indoctrinated, right, into this colonialized mentality, right? So part of the process of decolonizing our thinking is challenging the petty bourgeoisie, right? It's challenging these colonialist, neo-colonialist Negroes, right? Who basically don't have an identity of who they are, have no sense of who they are, other than what they have been told who they are by those who oppress us. And they have accepted that. That's part of that trauma that we have been suffering, right, for over 400 years, right? The question of identity. So the first part in God's that is that we have to challenge the petty bourgeoisie. We have to challenge the bourgeoisie class, right, the comprado class, right, and challenge them in terms of how you going to represent us and you're not working in the best interest of us, right? You're working in the best interest of yourself and the corporate entity that they call the United States, right? So, so that's the first phase, right? Class struggle for national unity, right? And that's the hardest part. Why is it so hard? Because we have to decolonize our thinking. We have to purge ourselves of what we have been indoctrinated, right? We have to come to a realization that we are a nation within an oppressed nation. All right. Let me make this point also especially clear when I talk about the exodus out of the South. A lot of people don't understand the majority of people of African descent still live in what is called the Black Belt South. Black Belt South. The majority of us still live there, right? Over 400 years. So don't tell me we're going to have no claims to the territory, no claims to the land. Yes, we do. All right? So South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana is the territories from which we had the majority of our of people reside, right? And we're going back to reclaim that territory, right? We are stating that this territory we're going to call Republic of New Africa, right? We're going to build nationhood, right? We have no chance, no choice in the matter. We're going to dismantle this entity that they call this corporate entity that they call America.
All right. Thank you, brother. Unfortunately, Mr. and Mrs. Barron had a bit of technical difficulties. So, I have one more question in the chat. My name is Kira Gachuru. I produce the show as well as the executive director of Operation Power. Glad to have you, brother. But
Thank
there's
you
one
very kindly,
question.
Brother
Nah,
Q.
thank you, man. We're having a great time, and a lot of people, putting stuff in the chat. So I'm going to put that one for you. If you could, take that last question, and then we'll wrap it up in about 5 minutes.
Sure, sure. The question is, could you discuss the importance of international solidarity if you haven't already?
Yeah, Sunday.
Absolutely. That's the question you want you
Yeah, that's the
to
one.
address?
Yeah, that's the one, brother.
Okay, all right. Well, first of all, come to understand that I'm a Pan-Africanist, right? I believe in Pan-Africanism.
Right.
So that's the first foundation for me dealing with international community and building solidarity, right? We have to establish our relationship with others based upon some concept, some principles of who we are. So my relationship to international community is based on the understanding that I'm a Pan-Africanist. All right. I went to Venezuela and I went to Greece, right? And I told those people over there that they will not be free until Black people are free. All right. When Black people are free, the world will be free. All right. Let's understand that. That's the first foundation in terms of my relationship to any other nationality or any other nation. All right. So we're building solidarity based upon our relationship, subject to how each of us are being challenged by the system of capitalism, by the system of white supremacy. That's first. Okay. The second one is developing principles of unity, right? Concepts and principles of unity. If they're fighting U.S. imperialism on their front, and we're fighting U.S. imperialism on our front, we need to find specific targets. For example, right? And I'll just make this, as open as possibly can. We know that, for instance, Starbucks supports genocides, right? Supports what's going on, the Zionists, right? So why not organize a national or international a boycott, right, against Starbucks? So let me make this point. Once we become organized, right, in our relationship to international forces on the international platform, it will be based upon them understanding that we are in the belly of the beast, right? That we're gonna suffer the brunt of repression, right? And that we don't need their help, right? Over the years, we have been supporting other forces fighting colonialism, right? Now it's time for it to be reciprocated. They need to return and support us. They need to come and say, what do we need? What do we need from them? Mm-hmm. All right. So then when we say boycott Coca-Cola, right? Then we want the world to boycott Coca-Cola, right? When we say protest in front of the UN U.S. embassies around the world, right? We want our comrades around the world to protest U.S. embassies around the world. Okay, and this is how we build our relationships, right? But subject to our needs, and not always subject to their needs. All right, and at this point in time, that's extremely important because the empire is being dismantled, right? And our survival will be based in some respects, we're based upon the international community coming to an understanding our needs and coming to support and aid us in our struggle. And I'm gonna give you another example. If they decide for us to do a roundup of black people in this country, fortunately, the Supreme Court ruled against the dictator in regards to the issues of the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship. But if he had won, all of us would no longer be citizens of the United States. Okay, they would do a mass roundup. Okay, where is the international community going to support us in that regard? Right, and one way they support us is stop buying American products. Okay,
Right.
you know what I mean? Yeah, right. An international boycott against American products, and say we're boycotting you because of your treatment of black people, African people in your country.
But we had some difficulties. We're back. Thanks, K-Roo. We had a quite capable man of going forward. So I know we're at the end of our program, but Jalil, you're awesome, my brother. Me and Inez, while we were locked out, we were talking about how phenomenal the information, the historical information, yes, but connecting it to where we at presently. Because as you said, we in a unique situation in the belly of the beast. There's nothing like it anywhere else. And we had people saying, I'm in total agreement with you. Asante Sana. Kalonji was on and said we was commemorating the 101st anniversary of Patrice Lumumba.
Absolutely.
And congratulated us.
Kalonji just finished doing a summit.
Right? Yes,
new cool summit. It was fantastic.
It was
fantastic. Awesome. I got to give him my props. I got to tip my kufi off of Kalonji and the work that he did. Oh yeah. He put them pieces together. It's very good. Right? Yes, absolutely. See, and that's what I'm talking about. We have the talent.
That's right.
We have the capacity.
Right.
We don't have the unity.
That's it.
That's it. So once we become unified in this determination, there ain't no stopping us.
That's
right. None whatsoever. I'm fully convinced we're gonna win.
Oh yeah.
I'm fully convinced we're gonna win. Yeah. Right. But we gotta do the process of class struggle for national unity. That's the hardest, most difficult part that we have to do. Right. Yeah. But once we get there and build national unity for self-government, we're putting the pieces together. Self-government for national independence. Hey, we're rolling. Well, but the first and the hardest struggle is class struggle for national unity.
There you go. We run out of time, but thank you all so much for tuning in. This is my brother, Jalil Montekim. All roads lead to Atlanta on July 4th and July 5th for the People's Senate and laying out the foundation of what we must do to use culture as a weapon, politics, economics, all of our skills and talents as a weapon for our liberation. And as we say each and every week, Inez?
Thank you so much for being a part of what we're struggling to do, for the model, for the sacrifice, for the sustained commitment that you bring to our liberation movement.
Let me tell you something. If I was down for 49, 50 years, I'd come out pissed at the world. I couldn't even make any sense. But you, my brother, all that time and making good sense, because they can never kill your spirit.
I never stop fighting, comrade.
That's right, man.
Never stop fighting.
So we say straight ahead, and as we say each and every week, the truth shall set you free, and power is the great equalizer. Black power.
Black power. All power to the people.